Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. This is James, and in this video I want to talk about the animated map video that I just uploaded. At one point I sat down and said to myself, I want to do this video, and I thought, 2 weeks at the most, maybe 3, and it turned out to be several months of work, just because it doesn't really work out as far as the path. One episode to say this, another episode to say this, and then we'll get another clue over here that says, well, it should be over here. Then we've got the comics. Well, it was here in the comics. So first off, I got to say, and very seriously, this is a zombie fantasy TV show. The writers and producers didn't try to make it work out or make sense. The geography, it was all shot in Georgia, supposed to be Virginia, around Washington, D.C. It doesn't fit. They may say one thing one season and totally throw it away, change it up the next season. So one thing I also want to say is, a lot of times the characters were like, well, it took a day to get from this point to this point, or a half a day, or whatever, 2 days. And in the apocalypse, there could be a tree across the road. There could be a lot of things that we don't see on screen that could have happened during their travels, and little things like that. So I didn't take too much of that into consideration as far as it's not going to work out right going by that. I mean, I did try it and none of it worked out. So I just kind of didn't really go by that much. I ended up, as far as the map that I ended up with, yes, I know there's discrepancies, and, this episode said this. Well, these other 5 episodes said this, So it's like I had to choose something, one path, one way to make it all work out. We'll look at some of the comments that you guys are talking about and stuff like that, and I'm going to try to explain a little bit of my reasoning and not make this video too long, maybe. I'll even show you one of the original maps I was working on that I worked on for a long time, trying to make it work, trying to make that work because it seemed more logical as far as what a lot of the show said, but it just didn't, and I ended up what I ended up with. So if we go to one point in the show where they find the bridge has been destroyed, and Rick ends up at the sanctuary. That's where Daryl is. He's been kind of trying to lead the sanctuary, and this is after Negan, after all that war, after Negan's in jail. Rick's there talking to Daryl, and Daryl makes a statement like this.
Most of the bridges are out after the big storm. The highway's done.
So at that point, the show kind of tells us, well, a bunch of the roads are just impassable for whatever reason, and that a lot of the bridges are out. There's little rivers that run through there, and a lot of the bridges are out. Some of the main bridges, so that's why it came down to this one bridge being very important, even though on the map, it looks like, hey, there's a bunch more roads they could take. Well, what Daryl says in that one point kind of fixes that a little bit. And another thing, the kingdom, it kind of maybe should have been around Arlington, or at least on the east side of DC, kind of more like the comic. But as you go through the show, there's just no way that could be or work out that way. And one of the main episodes, this is after Rick left, this was in season 9, episode 16.
Rick's bridge would have saved us. Could have cut half a day off our travel time.
Oh, we don't need a bridge.
The whispers have come around. They've made their border announced. That's the big snowstorm episode. That's the one where the kingdom falls, or as far as, hey, they shut the doors on the kingdom. They can't stay there anymore. Where they're traveling through the winter, that snowstorm, and where are they going? To Hilltop. Why? Because it's in between Kingdom and Alexandria. So that makes it pretty hard to put the kingdom up there around Washington, D.C. anywhere, or Arlington, because that's just too close to Alexandria. And that's if Alexandria is really in Alexandria, you would have to put Alexandria somewhere else. So I went by a few basic facts. And, at first, even watching this show, I thought, well, even though that subdivision is called Alexandria, it's probably not exactly in Alexandria, but everything, everywhere, no matter where you look, says Alexandria. But, everybody else could be wrong. But that's one rule I went by. I'm going to place Alexandria real close, almost in Alexandria. Another thing I went by, during All Out War, Negan had a map of Hilltop and pointed to it. And it's hard to see the map, really. There's a guy from Virginia, I think it was on maybe Reddit or somewhere where I saw it, where he said, I'm from this very area and I know that map. I can see it even though it's kind of sideways and you can't see it good. Hilltop's around Washington. And as you look at the old map, I had Hilltop more up toward Washington instead of Culpeper. But if you look at so many other people talking, whether it be comicbook.com or a lot of the articles that came out around that time, they all said Culpeper. So I kind of just shot above Culpeper a little bit. But that still puts Hilltop in a specific place as per an episode telling us so. And if we go with Alexandria and Hilltop is in the middle, Kingdom's got to be somewhere, can't be around Washington, D.C. You know, that automatically says, well, Kingdom's got to be further down. As you notice on the old map, I had Sanctuary and pretty much everything up closer to Washington, everything closer together. But I had to spread it out because it just didn't work out as I started through the episodes and laying out the path of Rick Grimes. And one of the biggest episodes that I went by is that snow episode. They left out from the Kingdom heading to Hilltop because it's in between. Some of them were going to continue on to Alexandria, which you saw a snowball fight towards the end of the episode. That's some of them actually finally reaching Alexandria, but they stopped at Hilltop first. But before they even went to Hilltop, the bridge was out. The roads were bad. They had to detour and go to the Sanctuary. You know, they traveled over into Whisper territory, and that does, this map does allow, the map I used, it does allow for the Whisperer territory to creep in from the south up the coast. And it looks like they could get to Hilltop pretty easy with one of those other roads. But as Daryl said, the roads are bad. The other bridges are out. Aaron, reminds us that Rick's bridge is still out. So they have to go the long way around. And I just had to choose a path. And Ezekiel says to Henry at bridge camp at one point,
without this bridge, there'd be no trade. Bullets from Alexandria, grain from Hilltop, fish from Oceanside.
So I went by that as well to saying, the Sanctuary and Kingdom are on one side and everything else that they want to trade with is on the other side. And one quick note on Oceanside, someone asked, it's crazy how the Saviors never knew about Alexandria until Rick showed up, but knew about Oceanside. I never understood that. Well, to answer that question, it tells us in the episode where the Saviors are getting killed. And Daryl figures out, he's with Maggie, figures out that it's the Oceanside people for killing the Saviors for revenge because the Saviors had killed all their men. And supposedly this was maybe before Negan come along. Someone can correct me on that, but I think Simon did it before Negan came along, maybe before they joined Negan and the Saviors. But Oceanside community at that time was at another place, and this is where they killed a rat, if I'm saying that name right. Daryl and Maggie come up on them, and they're about to kill that Savior, and Daryl and Maggie just kind of turns and walks away and lets them do it. And that's when Maggie says, hey, I'm going to kill Negan, and that starts all that process. Well, they were at Hollow Brant Outreach Recovery, closer over there to, I didn't mark it on the map or anything because Rick didn't go there. This was Rick Grimes' journey. But the Outreach Recovery place should have been somewhere over there closer to those other communities. That's the place they killed a rat. That's where all the men were killed by Simon. And then Oceanside fled. So Simon didn't know where they went, that kind of thing. They fled all the way over there to Oceanside. Okay, and the other big question that I'm getting more and more in the comments, and I understand that should have been there as far as I should have just bit the bullet and put in the extra work as far as adding Rick's journey from that point. So a lot of people were asking about Commonwealth. Well, Rick's journey never reached Commonwealth because he left the show, except when at the end of The Ones Who Live. I think the helicopter landing in that field there, Judith and RJ should have been at Commonwealth. So I think they're just right outside Commonwealth somehow, some way when they land the helicopter and meet the kids. As far as Commonwealth, the location, I think it's close to maybe Lancaster in Ohio. Some people's been talking about that in the comments and stuff. So I think that's where that may be. And the only way the map would probably, if I did a map of The Ones Who Live and Rick's continued journey, it would end up there. But he didn't really go a bunch of places. He went to Philly, we know, leaving on the helicopter. He made a couple missions. He went to the Cascades and back. There was a little escape point to the cabin over at the Cascades. It's not that I'm not planning on doing it. I just had worked for months and months. I played the little dot game, moving the dots and the names around the map and trying to make the episodes, watching through the episodes time and time again to make it work out. And it mostly didn't. And I had to just scratch all the hours I just worked. And, oh, that's not going to work. I have to move these dots over here and start way back here. Let me start again and see if this works with the previous episodes so I don't mess anything up. So I tried to make it all work the best I could. I spent months on it. And it does encompass the entire Rick journey of the Walking Dead main show. So maybe we'll get even more journey from him after the ones who live, and I would even have to make an additional map. But from hospital bed to helicopter, that's what I covered in this video. I will do the ones who live. That'll probably just be a separate video by itself, an addendum, an additional video. So again, if you look too far into it, there's plot holes, there's discrepancies, there's things that don't make sense. And that's the whole thing about the zombie fantasy TV show. Sometimes you just got to go with it. You can't look too far into it. There are contrast shows, I think, like Game of Thrones. It has a deep lore, a deep history, like thousands of years of history that the dude wrote down with maps and all that stuff he included in the books. I mean, so we know pretty much exactly where everything is. And I even come across a website one time that laid out the map and told you the distances it took, you know, time to travel between all the different cities and stuff. I mean, it's really detailed. The Game of Thrones world mythology is so detailed and fairly correct. You know, there's not a lot of, well, you said one time this and now it's this. There's some of that, but not very much at all. The Walking Dead, it's all the time. They don't have a map. They never had a map. It's whatever plot requires. So that makes it a lot harder. But I'm really glad many of you guys have really enjoyed the map. You know, it may not be precise, it may not be exact, but it's really close, and it does help give you a good visual, especially people not from America. And there's been a few comments about that. But over the years, a big thing with the channel with people in European countries and different places, they ask about distances and places and things like that, and didn't really understand, you know, the whole scope of the matter. And I think this video will definitely help that. So appreciate all you guys who did watch that main video, the animated map journey. Appreciate all you guys who watched this one. And if you have any questions at all about how I come up with something, or my thinking on something, or what you think about something, maybe you think about it a little different, because I totally could get some stuff wrong. I got a couple stuff wrong in the video. I said Wiltshire instead of Shire Wilt. And as many times as I rewatched that through the edit, trying to get everything correct, I just totally never caught it. So that's the way things go a lot of times. And it's you guys that keep me on my toes for sure. So hey, questions about the map, we can continue talking about it in the main video. We can do it in the comments here. Just let me know if you have any questions, and you know I'll join you there. This is James in Nashville. As always, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more dead stuff.